Welcome to the Literature Lounge, where writers and authors share their stories behind their stories.
Hi, in today's episode, we have with us Alpana Killawala. She's a seasoned communications professional known for a pivotal role in shaping the communication strategy, hold your guns now, of the Reserve Bank of India, RBI. With a career spanning over 2 decades at the RBI, she played a crucial role in evolving the institution's communication function and its nascent stages to a robust and transparent framework. Throughout her career, Alpana navigated significant milestones in India's economic history, including the liberalization reforms of the 1990s and managing communications during critical events such as the Harshad Mehta scam that entire India knows about. Her tenure at the RBI provided her with unique insights into the workings of the central bank and the minds of its esteemed governors whom she served under. She has a book. The book is called A Fly on the RBI Wall, an insider's view of the central bank. Alpana shares candid anecdotes and reflections on her journey, offering readers a behind-the-scenes look at the RBI's inner workings and the challenges faced in communicating its policies and decisions to the public. So Alpana's book is called A Fly on the RBI Wall. Welcome, Alpana. In today's episode, what was the motivation to write your book, A Fly on the RBI Wall?
First of all, thank you very much for having me on your show. A lot of people asked me why the book and why the title Fly on the Wall. So I was most reluctant, as one would be, to write my. I didn't want to get into memoirs because I didn't think that I was so important as to write my memoirs. I mean, everybody has memories. Everybody learns something out of memories, and that's about it. So why should I write? But then I have a habit of storytelling, and I used to tell these anecdotes as I would work. And I had a girl gang with which I was working on museum, which we set up in Calcutta. And they used to tell me that, "Ma'am, aap likho na," and I would tell them that no, it's not worth it. Then I started teaching after retirement. And while teaching, I used to use these anecdotes as illustrations to make my point in media relations. And then somebody said, "Chalo likho." And once I put my pen on the paper, then there was no stop.
There was no looking back.
It in about 4 months' time. Now, coming to the second part of the question, why Fly on the Wall? The title. Fly, like I said, I thought I was as insignificant as a fly. But then the person who suggested this title insisted that a fly still watches around everything and notes, which you did. So you are a fly on the wall. So I said, yeah, I guess I'm a fly on the wall. And
It's
I
an
like the title.
extremely powerful title. And it's a fantastic title that just got me so interested when I'd seen this. You've been an insider to the bank's most powerful central bank, right? Having served under several governors. How would you describe the inner workings, on RBI to someone who's a rank outsider? And what goes on inside those hallowed walls that we all from the outside see, in some sense that also defines the financial well-being of a country and, of a nation and its citizens. So tell us a little bit about that.
Actually, you are right. Reserve Bank is a hallowed institution, and not many people know what RBI does or what happens inside, and they just are in awe of the institution. But RBI is a very, very knowledge institution run by technocrats. Most of us are economists. I'm not. I'm more a communicator, or rather a communicator. But almost 50% of the staff is economist, and the rest of the staff who looks at other functions like supervision, regulation, and all that, they belong to those education lines. So some is engineers, some are chartered accountants, auditors, company secretaries, and they're all very qualified people. So when we do those functions, they are absolutely professionally run. The governor is always appointed by the government of India, and at times the governor could be a non-economist, like we have one now, Mr. Shaktikant Das. He's a double graduate, postgraduate in history, but he's surrounded by all these technocrats and they give him the advice. And of course, being an IAS, he has a mind of its own and he knows how to run the country. So he was a finance secretary before he came here. So it's a very, very technocratic institution and functions as efficiently as it could. We have absolute freedom of expressing our views inside the RBI. But then, being bureaucrats, we also, once a view is taken officially after considering all pluses and minuses of all the issues, then we abide by that, and then that becomes the official view of the RBI. Then we don't have individual views. So that is how the inside of the RBI functions. We tried to demystify the RBI in Dr. Subbarao's time. And after that, I mean, my joining the RBI had that purpose of making the institution transparent and accountable. And that's what we've been trying to do all the while.
That sounds like a humongous task of making the RBI transparent, which to most of us just seem like, as I use the word, hallowed wall. So from your vantage view, what has been the evolution journey of RBI and how has it shaped the India that we currently live in?
That's a huge question to answer. So what I'll do is I will restrict myself only to the period that I worked in the RBI. So that was 1992 onwards. I was indeed very fortunate to be working in those years because that's the time when the central banks, the world around, thought of breaking their mysterious ways of functioning and opening up, bringing in transparency and bringing in accountability. We also undertook this, what that period is called as economic reforms. We started, and that also brought upon ourselves that we also become transparent and accountable to people of the India. And so that's how I joined the RBI. I mean, that was my objective, or RBI's objective, to recruit me, a professional. The evolution of RBI, I would say that each crisis that I faced in the last, in my entire career span of 25, 26 years, each crisis made us reform the institution. And in between those crises also, we kept on reforming ourselves and evolving ourselves to keep in step with the evolving times. So the whole computerization, Harshad Mehta scam, for example, brought in computerization and made the entire government securities market electronic. Similarly, as recent as now, the pandemic brought along, we were working on UPI, all right, which is an electronic way of payment to be made. But the pandemic expedited the whole process to no extent. And the huge spread of UPI that you see today, thanks to pandemic and the technological evolution. So these are the two extremes that I kind of look at, two big milestones. And in between, the whole institution evolved. And today we are much agile, much... a lot of young people within just like our country is very young. The RBI is also very young now. And people in their 40s or mid 40s are heading the departments and they are absolutely electronically savvy.
Just taking a quote from your book, you've said the top management of RBI is appointed and not elected. So I would like you to explain to us, what do you mean by this? And, what is this balance between independence and accountability in its decision-making process? So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. You have one institution called the Government of India and the other institution called the Reserve Bank of India. Now, government is entirely elected. It's the executive arm of the parliament, as we call it, the democracy. Now, the entire system being elected, and it's the government which appoints the governor and the deputy governors of the RBI, which we call the top management of the RBI, who make the decision finally. although the lower down officials do support and do argue out the cases, and they provide the knowledge base for making those decisions, you cannot entirely say that the top management is, they don't know anything or something. They are equally knowledgeable. They know how to balance the system, the financial system as such, with the government of India and the banks on the other side, or the population or the economy on the other side. What happens is when the government appoints the top management is answerable to the government. It is answerable to the parliament through the Ministry of Finance, not directly. Like in the US, you have a system where the chairman of the Federal Reserve directly goes and gives evidence to the what is known as the parliament there, the Senate. Whereas here, we don't appear in front of parliament. No RBI official appears in front of parliament. They go through the Ministry of Finance, and the minister replies to the questions in the parliament on behalf of RBI, and those answers are provided by the RBI. So that's the difference being appointed and being selected. And independence also you mentioned. So Dr. Reddy has this famous joke about, he always said that we are as independent as the government wants us to be. But that was a joke indeed. I would give another governance example to prove how it was, how RBI is an independent body. Dr. Subbarao was a finance secretary just before he was appointed the governor of RBI. And the moment he landed in the RBI, at the end of his tenure, 5 or 6 years, he was the governor. And at the end of it, when we were conducting the exit interviews of Dr. Subbarao, in one of the interviews, a journalist asked him a question. And he said, between the finance ministry, because in finance, as finance secretary, he was appearing to be, meaning the media was writing stories which indicated that he is dictating to the RBI, or he is forcing RBI to do things. When he became the RBI governor, and at the end of his tenure, media made him almost fight with the finance ministry. You would remember the Chidambaram's statement of Akla Chalore and all that. So those kind of rifts, but which actually did not exist. Two institutions have two different objectives, and in the public platform, they argue it out, they sort out their differences privately, and then the decisions are taken, which are consensus decisions most of the time, almost all the time. So the journalist asked him as to when did he change his view. He said on the flight from Delhi to Mumbai. So that kind of represents the independence of RBI. Two views do happen, but those differences are sorted out and most amicably between the finance ministry and the RBI. And that's how you see the country on the growth path, so to say.
Yeah, absolutely. So, growing up, we've heard about the 1991 balance of payment crisis. India having to pledge its gold in the consequent era of liberalization. Communicating to general public about what's happening without being too technical would have been a challenge, right? So can you just share your insights from that period of time and, the next few years that went by from that time to, to explaining to a common man what it meant?
Actually, by the time I joined, the balance of payment crisis was nearly over because the gold had gone outside and we had received some foreign exchange. And economic reforms, once they started, then we thought that the foreign exchange started coming in, and the resource crunch that we were facing, because of which the balance of payments crisis occurred, that had receded. So okay. I was more into Harshad Mehta scam than the balance of payment crisis, though I witnessed some of the crucial happenings on the balance of payments crisis, mainly the measures that we took on the economic reforms front, because economic reforms also meant that we brought in reforms on our monetary policy, the way it was constructed. And also, it was a long drawn process, which I think we started in about 1994 when Dr. Rangarajan took over, and ended somewhere around when Dr. Rajan was leaving, that setting up of Monetary Policy Committee and all that. So it was a long 25 years process, which we undertook. Gradually, slowly, we brought. And as we were opening up, we were communicating all the time. And there were various ways. Just to give you one illustration, we took media support, and it was my kind of responsibility to find out a couple of journalists to whom we could explain what we are doing, because market was opening up and foreign exchange reforms were happening. So a lot of things were happening which were advantageous for the public outside, businesses outside. But it was necessary to explain it to them that as to what we are doing, what's the purpose of those notifications that we were issuing almost one every day. So we took into confidence a few journalists to whom we would invite, and we would explain what we are doing, why we were doing. They would ask us questions, and we would give them open, transparent answers, and they would go back and write in their own words as to what was happening. And this process continued till the end, till I left the RBI, and even now, for that matter, because I know that journalists are being called for private meetings with the RBI. They are explained all the details as openly as one could, and then they go back and write without, of course, quoting, because our objective is more to explain rather than be seen in the newspapers or news media.
To come back to you with the Harshad Mehta scam, I'm just very, very interested in knowing about this, and I'm sure so many of our listeners, we all grew up with that entire scam that had happened, right? And there's also a web series that's been done. So, all our listeners are going to benefit from understanding, what led to it and the safeguards that you all have put into place to ensure that the markets are safer. I mean, Harshad Mehta really got all of us totally shaken up with the system.
Yeah, and these things keep happening, all as you develop, as you open up. A lot of people, it's a human nature that some people are aggressive and some people are not so aggressive. So the aggressive people find a way out of, running faster than the other slow runners. So Harshad Mehta was one of them, fast runner. You really want me to explain what happened in Harshad Mehta's scam?
Absolutely, Alpana. Yes.
Somewhat technical, but I'll try. Let's see. What he used to do was, at that time, the securities market was not electronic as it is now. So it was all physical, and we being the government's merchant banker, even at that time, once the government security was issued, we would maintain physical book, the ledger, as it was called. And in the ledger, we would enter that security, that one security is issued, whatever its name is, nomenclature, and then how much amount has been issued for and who has bought this. So entire list of the buyers would be with us. And these securities are tradable in the market. So let's say State Bank of India sells some of its securities to Bank of Baroda. So then they would have to come to us with the security, both the buyer and the seller. They would give us that form for requesting us to transfer the security from State Bank of India to Bank of Baroda. And that form we will take along with the security. We would make entry into that ledger, which was called Subsidiary General Ledger. Short form was SGL. So we would enter there and it took about 2 to 3 days. And then third day, Bank of Baroda person would come and take the form and the securities, which was now in his name. So this 2 or 3 days period that was interim between the State Bank of India giving us the form and we giving it back to Bank of Baroda, those 2-3 days that security remained with us. So we would issue something called banker's receipt. Okay, to Bank of Baroda, saying that this security we will transfer, but this is the acknowledgement that we give you. Now, Bank of Baroda wanted to trade in those securities which were still with us. They could do it on the basis of banker's receipt, because that said that these securities belong to Bank of Baroda. Now, Harshad Mehta was a broker. So brokers would come instead of the banks because the whole deals would happen through brokers. So Harshad Mehta or his person would come to us and submit the form, and next day he would come and collect the form on behalf of Bank of Baroda also. So he knew exactly how the system works. So what he would do is, on the basis of that banker's receipt, instead of giving it to Bank of Baroda, he would keep it with himself, go and borrow from the bank, and he would put that money into the stock market. Now, how did stock market operate at that time? At that time, there was something called a badla. So badla meant that you don't have to take delivery of the securities that you have bought. You can disinvest it. That also, the transfer of securities took about 3 days, I think. At T+3 it was. So 3 days to transfer the security or the stocks into your name. So if you sell off your stocks that you had bought within that 3 days, then you don't have to take delivery. So you make money in between and you get out before it's time to take delivery, because then you have to pay up for the securities, for the stocks. So Harshad Mehta did exactly the same thing. And that time it was a bull market. So Harshad Mehta would take money on the basis of bankers' receipt from the banks, invest it in stock market, and then take out in the badla format before it came to delivery time, came back to the bank, deposited that money, and then delivered the BR and the securities back to Bank of Baroda. So this is how it was happening. And the bull phase, this additional money kept coming to the market. So bull became aggressive. And the stock market started kind of, booming so much that even individuals started investing in stock market. And then it was a dangerous thing, because individuals don't have the information that the stockbrokers have. And they will burn their fingers. And we were investigating as to where this money is coming from. Why so much money? Why is the stock market booming so much? And that's when we realized this link between the government security market and the stock market, and which was wrong, because on banker's receipt, you cannot trade. You have to submit physical securities according to the laws. And so we decided to stop it. And the moment the music stopped, whoever had the ball, at that time it was with State Bank of India, got caught.
So, while Harshad Mehta appeared and several safeguards and regulatory oversight were put into place, we still had Ketan Parekh. And what did the central bank really miss that led to this event? What were these systematic risks in some other of these cases? So with Harshad Mehta, it didn't stop. We again had Ketan Parekh. So what are your views on that?
Ketan Parekh actually was quite different from Harshad Mehta, because what Ketan Parekh did was absolute fraud. Harshad Mehta initially started on the basis of banker's receipt. The greed overtook, and then it started becoming without. He submitted the banker's receipt, which were not backed by government securities, or which were not backed by public sector. So that's when the hole started becoming bigger and bigger. Whereas Ketan Parekh, what he did was, there was a cooperative bank in Gujarat called Madhavpura Cooperative Bank. He used to dip into the funds, and this Madhavpura Bank in Gujarat was quite large, quite a big bank, because a lot of other smaller cooperative banks around it were functioning on the basis of Madhavpura. So all their funds were in Madhavpura Bank. And therefore, Madhavpura was large, just like any other state cooperative bank. So what happened was, Ketan Parekh would dip into that bank's funds and then invest it in stock market. Now, this Madhavpura ultimately started borrowing from call money market, because Ketan Parekh had invested money in the stock market, and he by the time all Badla system and all those things also had stopped. So then, stock market reforms, and he couldn't return the money in time. So Madhavpura was constant borrower in the call money market. Now, such a small bank and borrowing continuously in the call money market made us realize that something is fishy there. So we went into Madhavpura's balance sheet, and we found out the link between Ketan Parekh's movements and Madhavpura Bank. And then we decided to stop that too. And then Madhavpura had to go down and under because it didn't have the capital that it required to. We tried a lot, but we couldn't save the bank. So
But I
that
can't
was.
let you go, Alpana, without asking you about demonetization. You have to talk to us about that. What led, to this event and the goals? And when you look back, do you think that we achieved the objectives, with the demonetization?
Demonetization, economists will never support. The decision of demonetizing is taken entirely by the government of India, anywhere in the world for that matter. It's a political decision always, because the objective of demonetization is to pull out black money, to curb black money. And black money doesn't exist in the realm of central bank. It is always a function of tax regime of any country. To save tax, you pay cash or you receive cash.
Yeah.
And once you do that, once it is not in your bank account, it is not recorded in RBI systems. So RBI is completely out of it. As economists, like I said, no economist will support demonetization because it causes more harm to the economy and to the public at large than it does good. The hoarders of cash always find ways to get out of the clutches of the authorities. So it never succeeds. So whether it achieved its objective or not is not within the RBI's purview to answer. We as good soldiers, because the banks are run by the RBI and the RBI is ultimately the issuer and receiver and destroyer of the currency notes, we played that role as a good soldier, as the government wanted us to do. So we were soldiers at that time rather than captains.
So how would you see RBI stands today with respect, to its global peers, and how do they balance domestic economic policies versus the pressure originating from global financial trends? It's also pertinent given that there's a lot of critique, domestic and international, of RBI's very, very conservative approach, towards inflation and the interest rate targets. So tell us a little about that.
RBI always, this is historical. Even if you don't talk about today, if you talk about Dr. Manmohan, when Dr. Manmohan Singh was the governor of RBI, or even before that, RBI has existed for the common man always. And this was Dr. Manmohan Singh's famous lines that which Dr. Rangarajan also repeated, and as late as I think Dr. Subbarao also repeated, and Dr. Raghuram Rajan also believed in it. We try to curb inflation as much as possible because we have a lot of poor people in our country.
Absolutely.
And if inflation, and Dr. Rangarajan used to give this example that let's say a laborer on the roadside who earns daily wages, he works through the day, earns his money, goes to the market, buys 2 onions and a little atta, and makes roti out of that in the evening and eats with that onion. Now, if that onion price, let's say, for example, he earns 100 rupees a day. Now, I think minimum wage is about 800 rupees or something, but that time it was 100. So he would say that he earns 100 rupees, and if onions become 80 rupees a kg, then he has to forego the onion because he can't afford to spend all his earnings into onion buying.
Absolutely, yeah.
So he will just eat that roti. So for him, inflation has to be controlled. So however harsh people may find our steps to be, we do sit like a hawk on the inflation parapet and try to control inflation as much as we can. And all the conservatism that we were accused of, if you remember, I'm talking about Dr. Reddy's time when we were opening up towards what is known as full capital account convertibility. And we were going slow on that. Securitization and measures like that, we were going slow on that. Because Dr. Reddy always kept on saying that we have to first understand what the animal is and then let him loose in the jungle. So all these, when global financial crisis happened in 2008, all those people who blamed Dr. Reddy for his conservatism and who were furious with him and who wanted him to run and chuck him out because he was going slow on that. And all those people came and thanked Dr. Reddy for saving them from the global financial crisis. We were a country which was not affected by the global financial crisis. We had some second rung effects, but not directly impacted at all financial crisis. So we are conservative, or we are accused of that, but I think we work in the interest of the people as such.
So, Alpana, which governor have you enjoyed the most working with, and some aspect of the leadership or working style that has made you better at your own role?
I would say all of them.
That's a very politically correct statement to make.
You may say so, but I'm being honest, because with each governor, with such brilliance and such erudition, I just wanted to learn from each one of them. Each one, and I'm grateful to each one of them, because each one was very superlative in terms of communication, and they gave as much importance to communication as they gave to other policy making, which I think enabled me to do a lot of work in my short tenure of 26 years and make RBI transparent, thanks to them.
So, from press relations to media relations and using dissemination as a tool, how do you think the communication efficacy of RBI is given the context of their policy impact on every citizen of India?
Very difficult question to answer. But yes, earlier we depended solely on press relations because we didn't have this social media and technology and all. So we depended a lot on media, largely print media, because even the television was not on the scene at that time. We just had, I think, Doordarshan. But as the media started coming on board, more and more media, television came, then the wire agencies came, then the global international newspapers came, international news agencies came, like Reuters and Dow Jones and Bloomberg and all. We had to evolve our communication policy along with them. And I would say media and the Reserve Bank were partners in that. So they kept giving us suggestions. We kept asking them what to do, what would they want. And together we opened up the whole communication system. And from just press relations division, we became the whole communication department, because then the website came, and then towards the end of my career, social media also started coming up. So kind of I started off with social media, but then now, of course, they've expanded it quite a bit. So the whole evolution, I would say, happened because we kept in step with the development outside in communication technology and all that. Explaining policy, again, the credit goes to the governors, because each one of them insisted that. In fact, I remember once Dr. Reddy telling me that I had mother who was quite popular in the RBI circles. So my mother, he would say that the day you explain it to your mother and she understands what you're telling her, that is the level of communication I want. And he initiated regional language communication also. So we used to do interviews with vernacular media. So somebody from Chennai would ask questions. We used to have a technology platform through which all this. So Calcutta, Chennai, Ahmedabad, all these people would join and ask questions, and he would very patiently explain. So each governor, Dr. Subbarao also went to interiors and tried to be with people and explain to them what Reserve Bank of India, very, very painstakingly would do that. Speeches. So whatever instrument came our way, we used so that we explained the policies to the people and sought their support.
Let's just talk, Alpana, a little bit about the rising fintech ecosystem. Yeah, and everybody's talking about this advent of digital currency. It just completely blows my mind in our country. What is the role that technology is playing in RBI, to ensure risk mitigation and consumer safety? Everybody's talking, and there is so much of risk involved with people who are talking about all of this. There doesn't seem to be a governance that, is taking care of this. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I will have to put one caveat here, because I am not in the system for the last 4 years. And fintech and CBDC, the digital currency, both have come post 2019. I will explain to the extent that I have understood these. I don't have an insight into the RBI's thinking to that extent. Of course, I've read the speeches that the governor and the deputy governors have taken and all. My understanding is based on that. Now, fintech and there is a lot of newspaper clamoring, saying that RBI is very heavy-handed and all on the fintech. It doesn't understand what the technological innovation is and all that. But I would not agree with that, knowing what is the caliber of the RBI people. Some of them are still in the system, or a lot of them are still in the system, and I know them personally, and I know that they are very intelligent people and they've kept in step with the technology. The whole purpose of RBI's regulation is to protect consumer interest. Today, who's using that UPI? One, your vegetable vendor, of course, apart from you and me, the vegetable vendor, and 10 rupee transaction on the UPI. And, if that 10 rupees get lost, then he will suffer. Like I said in the earlier example, he won't be able to buy his onion at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
And protection of that person is our responsibility. And so even if they feel that the regulations are high-handed, we stand by those regulations and we try to explain it to people as to what we are doing. So fintech, being such intelligent people and such innovative people, they should use their innovation to abide by regulation also. You can't function in a system without following the rules and regulations of that system. It's as simple as that. You want to stay in a country, you have to follow you want to drive on the roads of one country, you have to follow the regulations and the traffic lights. So you can't crib about that.
Are there any specific efforts that you witnessed or advocated towards increasing diversity and inclusiveness, across levels, including the leadership at RBI?
If you look at the RBI today, I would agree that they are all men and no women. But there was a time in RBI when I think 2 out of 4 deputy governors were ladies, were women. At the executive director level, we had 7 at that time, out of which 3 were women. And heads of the departments, which I think at that time numbered 40 odd, had almost, I don't remember the exact number, but out of that 10, 12, 15, at least 12 women. In the RBI itself, I don't remember the numbers, but more than 40% women, and at significant positions, these women work. So diversity enough, good, and absolutely no glass ceiling in RBI, because whoever is capable, it's all promotions are based on merit, based on seniority. So whoever comes up in the line and whoever is meritorious gets the position. It's as simple as that. But yes, if you look at today's top management, we don't have women, but I'm sure they must be in the queue.
What would be your advice, both professional and ethical, to budding bankers aspiring to work in this high stakes, high pressure environment? Because my son also is a banker and I'd love to hear from you, what is it that you would give as advice? Because as a mother, he doesn't listen to me and I find his lifestyle so, working hard, working late. And of course they enjoy this because that's why they choose this career. But tell me your words on this.
I was one among them, hardworking, and I think there were days, especially in the policy times, when we had to work round the clock, 24/7. I have been in the office for 48 hours at a stretch. So I am nobody to give them the advice. But now that I am retired, I can say, and when I look back, I realized what I had lost, because health-wise, family-wise, relationship, bonding with your family, bonding with your friends, I lost out on all those things. And now I feel that, of course, I have made up for more than enough, because now I'm all the time with family, all the time with friends, also working. But now I balance it. And now I realize that it's easy to balance if you want to. And those things are equally important to keep yourself alive, to keep yourself agile and in a better form, mentally and physically. It's very, very essential to keep the balance. So the advice will be to keep, please, the balance.
Okay, I just hope all young bankers are listening to this to keep the balance, and which is really a tough, ship to sail. So thank you so much, Alpana, for being on today's podcast, and we wish you all the best and many more books for us to really understand a lot more. And this was an amazing podcast. It's been an honor for me to have you on my show.
Thank you so very much.